They forced 21 turnovers.
Yeah, it was. Now Oklahoma State's been doing that to everybody, but credit where credit is due, because we were talking about this being the worst defensive team of the Jerome Tate era, which I agree is only 3 seasons. They were on their way, I believe, according to Fan, when you look at some of the deeper metrics and efficiency numbers, to being the worst defense in 25 seasons of Kansas State basketball. Now you've got like a string of about, I want to say 2 games, because it's since Kansas, right? So, really good defensive play.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Three Ma. John Kurtz, Derek Young with you. K-State wins again, 85-57. Damn near by 30 points. They beat a Big 12 opponent by almost 30 points. A Big 12 opponent that blew them out in Stillwater in one of the more disappointing games of the year. So, hey, for now, it's fun. We'll discuss what it all means, but for now, it's fun. And that calls for a toast. People, raise your bottle of Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon, or your glass, whichever way you go. Probably a little more responsible to do the glass. Let's say glass. Raise your glass of 360 vodka or Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon from our friends at Holiday Distillery. We appreciate all of their support here on the show. They're pumped about K-State basketball pulling it together a little bit here, so why not go show some support? Get ready for your Super Bowl party, right? To watch Patrick Mahomes become the first quarterback ever to win 3 straight Super Bowls. Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon, 360 vodka. Appreciate their support. I have an important stat, Derek, to lead off the show here, and it is unfortunate that Cole is not here for this one, but this is I got this from Bart Torvik and Ken Palm. They both had it, and the stat is that since Scott Drew came to the K-State locker room, K-State is 2-0. All right, all the advanced analytic websites are talking about this. K-State 2-0 since Scott Drew came to the locker room, and Cole said that would not save the season. It appears to have saved the season. So I just want to make sure that we start with that.
Yeah, I put daily thoughts on the KSO message board now every day, like 4 or 5. And there was a point, and I didn't expect Scott Drew to go into the locker room when I posted this. But one of my 5 daily thoughts ahead of the game at Baylor was that sometime it could be refreshing or like good mojo for a guy to get around his mentor again, or to go to old stomping grounds and just like recharge your batteries. So it's like whether that guy's got advice to give you that unlocks something, or you just get a better spirit about yourself because you get around a certain person. I think we've all had that in our life. But I actually posted that, and it's interesting because obviously they lost at Baylor, but they did hold a 12-point lead at one point in that game. And then following, Scott Drew enters the locker room and gives them a speech. I think the same one that Jerome Tang gave to the guys last year about the Baylor team that started 2-8 in Big 12 play and then finished 9-9 and made a Sweet 16. But since that game, yes, as you have alluded to many of times now, that continues to kind of be an uplifting thing. Maybe 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 here, but we're going to say 1 + 1 = 2.
Oh, I think like 1 + 1 = 5. I mean, it's because they're not just winning. I'm doing the math in my head here. 41. They're winning by an average of 20.5 points a game. 2-0 with the margin of victory over Big 12 teams by an average of 20.5 points per game. One of those being, at least as of right now, they're hanging on, but an NCAA tournament team in West Virginia. So, and DY, that is I'm not going to lie, that's a great take that you had about Baylor. I did not know this. That is a great take. So just, as a take maker here from one to another, let me bow a little bit. That was good.
Yeah, I thought you were saying a great take on West Virginia maybe not being a tournament team, because you just put some doubt into that when you questioned that take on our last show.
Well, it's, they lost again, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I guess it was Houston, so, I can't.
And they did make a comeback.
Yeah, that's right. They were getting blown out early, and they came back and made it a little more competitive. But
to your point, the margins here, the largest lead for Kansas State, I believe, was 26 against West Virginia. And on Wednesday against Oklahoma State, it was 32 when they were led 80-48.
Well, and just the energy from the beginning, both games, it was like 19-2 against West Virginia, and it got out to, what was the peak against Oklahoma State?
Well, it was 10-0, but there was an 18-6. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which that is to me the biggest thing. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going right and looking better, but the biggest thing is just consistent energy, and sometimes it is kind of that simple. Like we've been whining about that the entire year.
Yeah, we just wanted them to play hard.
Yeah, it just never felt like you were getting a consistent, hard-nosed effort from the team for an entire, they've done it for halves before. It came out at seemingly for the first time all year for one half at St. John's, but then they face a little adversity in the second half and it completely crumbles. And there have been spots and moments since then, but never this kind of sustained. I mean, they just jumped all over 2 consecutive Big 12 teams. And again, it's not like West Virginia and Oklahoma State are setting the world on fire, but there are enough teams that are at or below West Virginia and Oklahoma State level in this conference that keep playing like that. Like you're gonna keep picking up some wins. I mean,
yeah. Maybe not Oklahoma State. That could be the bottom of the bottom.
Yes. Fair enough.
Yeah, but there is still what, like we were talking about.
I think Colorado's probably worse, and you've got Colorado on the schedule.
Yeah, Colorado,
Cincinnati, UCF, Arizona State, Utah. I mean, that's
you could pick off Utah and UCF on the road, and in Arizona State on the road. And let's remember, this team badly needs a road win.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I'm not starting to talk about NCAA tournament resume or anything like that. I'm just saying,
I know
fives. If they can finish over 500, I mean, that would be nice. Like, just this is what a couple weeks ago we started asking for. Like, just don't let this crater into a completely, like a complete Mizzou season from last year that would make it really hard to come back from in the off season. Like, and it seems to be headed in that direction.
Yeah, another stat here. You played 40 straight minutes against West Virginia and Oklahoma State. You haven't trailed at any point.
Crazy. And I mean, it's about to get tough. The next 4 games, 3 of the next 4 are really, really tough. But I know as far as this game goes, like aside from just the energy, what stood out to you most?
You're still getting pretty good defense, right? Like this was. We talked about, I think against Kansas was the worst.
They forced 21 turnovers.
Yeah, it was. Now Oklahoma State's been doing that to everybody, but credit where credit is due, because we were talking about this being the worst defensive team of the Jerome Tate era, which I agree is only 3 seasons. They were on their way, I believe, according to Fan, when you look at some of the deeper metrics and efficiency numbers, to being the worst defense in 25 seasons of Kansas State basketball. Now you've got like a string of about, I want to say 2 games, because it's since Kansas, right? So, really good defensive play. So, like you said, forced 21 turnovers. 16 of those were in the first half. Like 16 turnovers and a half is pretty ridiculous. Now when it's that bad, the other team is definitely responsible for some of it, but Kansas State's really had active hands. So for me, it goes, I know they scored 85 points and shot 53% from the field. They shot 52% from the 3-point line. Brendan Haasett himself is 5 for 5. You didn't get out rebounded. It was even on the boards, both in total rebounds and in second chance points. And their bench was probably better, but everything else, you claimed the advantage. But the advantages and the margins on the other categories weren't that big. Fast break, you win by 1. Points in the paint, you win by 6. You tied second chance points. It's all about points off turnovers in this one for me. I mean, 28-11 probably could have been worse. 21 Oklahoma State turnovers. Kansas State gets a little sloppy with the ball at times, but they shot really, really well and took advantage of all the Oklahoma State mistakes. They basically made a bad team look worse because they were willing to take advantage of where the other team was playing poor.
Yeah, I mean, Doug McDaniel, 6 assists, 1 turnover. Like, it wasn't an elite scoring game by any stretch with 10 points, but seems to still be playing hard and making better decisions, and that's one of the things that we've mentioned for weeks now we have our eye on heading into next year. Like, what are you going to get out of Doug, and is that going to be someone that you can keep around?
It's headed in that direction. A kid's growing the percentage for me. I thought all along, once there was this pivot to the Houston model and we were going to kind of hammer that home in press conferences, apparently, saying that retention and continuity is important, that Doug McDaniel had to be a part of that. And since that became like a talking point, Doug McDaniel has played really, really well. He didn't shoot particularly well, 4-12 from the field, but that's kind of like the 2-point stuff, really, where he needs to probably be better around the rim and get to the free throw line more. Didn't get to the free throw line at all against Oklahoma State. But he's starting to pick it up from the 3-point line. 2 of 5 there. And like you said, 6 assists to 1 turnover. I thought he really, I don't know if that's really been talked about enough in like the Kansas State universe yet. I'm actually in the middle of an article where I am going to make it a point of emphasis that I tackle. But do you remember like all of these press conferences we had for like, I don't know, half the year might be hyperbole, but almost half the year, where if there was something asked about Doug McDaniel that Jerome Tang was shy about answering, or unwilling to give him any glowing remarks, even when it looked like he might have played a solid game, which kind of told us that he wasn't getting what he wanted or what he needed out of his point guard the way that he wanted it, at least on the court and maybe even off the court as well. And then even when the question wasn't about Doug McDaniel, I thought it was like the signature moment of the year, this past post-game press conference, because I don't know that he was that glowing about Doug McDaniel at any post-game press conference besides that one, following the win over Oklahoma State, where he says he commanded the game, he controlled the game. He was 6 assists to 1 turnover. I think he said he was 24 assists to his last 3 turnovers. I don't know if that's exactly right, but that was the numbers that Jerome Tang mentioned. He said, verbatim, what more else could you ask from your point guard? And we got the total opposite all year up until that point.
Yeah, it's not quite. So last 4 games, 12, 14, 18. I mean, he's like 18 assists, 7 turnovers in the last 4 games. So
yeah.
almost
Jerome Tang loves him so much, he's even embellishing his stat.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. But almost 3-1 assist to turnover. I'll take it. And, I shout out to Parker in our Discord, patreon.com/3moff, if you want to be a part of the Discord community. But he pointed out the last 5 games for Max Jones are 13 points, almost 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal per game, shooting 45% from 3. 113.9 offensive rating. So Max Jones starting to elevate his play. And there's the D2 kid that's suing the NCAA. What did we say? Another thing, we sound so damn smart. What have we been saying for weeks again? Hey, it'd be great if Max Jones could stick around next year. That'd be great.
I'll hop on that bandwagon. I think that rule would be stupid, because D2 is a governing body. Is being governed by the NCAA, unlike JUCO. So I'm not going to put my stamp of approval on if that rule gets changed or whatever. But hey,
to finish patting ourselves on the back, not only did we say it'd be great to have Max Jones around, I said, well, just wait. Someone will sue the NCAA and it'll happen. And now, lo and behold, there's a kid who played a year who wants his D2 eligibility to not count toward eligibility at the D1 level. And Max Jones famously started at playing D2 basketball. So maybe Max Jones can be back. It's the world we live in.
He's playing really good basketball. He's playing fun basketball. Max Jones at the rim, we need to work on that. But Max Jones everywhere else on the court, I like.
I mean, it just is what it is. Like he's not going to be a great finisher, but he's playing much better. He's playing much better.
And I will say this: this is probably a little bit of a fluky stat for him. He did have 4 of the 14 turnovers against Oklahoma State. Didn't even notice that.
Okay. Yeah. It just feels like you're getting a lot more from him.
You are, yeah. And you get everything he has every game.
I mean, Coleman Hawkins was incredibly aggressive and hell of a stat line.
Yeah, it didn't even feel like that kind of stat line while you were watching, too. Like, it seems like that every time. He's the quiet stat sheet stuffer of all time, I think.
Well, the broadcast crew was definitely pointing out. I mean, he was like, he would get the ball, and he was trying to go to the rim, like, and get in the paint, just disrupt and do something. Like, he was a man on a mission. Really, really helped us.
6-10 from the field, almost a double-double, almost a triple-double.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. And again, it's something we felt like all year you see from him. You're going to get a professional effort out of Coleman Hawkins. And that's been one of the things that if we look back and say, hey, this team finished whatever it might be in the Big 12. There's 20 Big 12 games. Hey, this team finished 9-11 in Big 12 play. That is so much better than we thought that it was going to be after the Houston game. Coleman Hawkins is going to be one of the big reasons for that. And people won't want to hear this, but if it saves you from plunging into 2 years of complete obscurity in basketball as opposed to just one, I don't know, maybe it was worth $2 million. Maybe it was worth it in the end.
9-11. Ooh, I don't know if we can get there. I would take 8-12, man.
Well, I'm just throwing out,
No, I was just holding your feet to the fire, I think.
As long as it's just a respectable number. I'm not looking at the schedule or anything.
What's respectable to you?
What's that?
What is respectable? Like, I know that's kind of a macro question, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Like 7 and above, I think would be.
Yeah, now that you've got to what are they, 3-6?
Yeah,
or 3-6. I think 7 is the bare minimum, because if you only get 3 the rest of the year, then you feel like you plunged again.
Yeah, I think, and especially like we rattled off all those games that are pretty winnable.
And we got, if you please, snap the road losing streak. You got to do that too.
Yeah, definitely need to win on the road. I mean, it'd be nice if it happened on Saturday. It's a hell of a way to do it. If that happens, I'll be wearing plenty of home field apparel. I can guarantee you that. And you should be wearing some on Saturday as you watch the game. Just out and about. Team played a little bit better. Get your home field apparel on. There's 50 plus K-State designs there. Best college gear around. The K-State designs are awesome. You can get that shooting shirt. You can get the pullover that Cole has been wearing here lately. And you can get 100 plus other teams like DY rocking perhaps the best team in the country right now, Duke.
Cooper Flag. I get to draft him on my dynasty team because I'm going to have the number 1 pick.
Nice. Duke or Auburn? Who would you take right now?
Duke.
Okay.
I think I would take Iowa State over Auburn.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think I would. I think I would take Houston over Auburn too.
Big 12 homer, Derek.
Yeah, I took Houston and Iowa State all 3 a little bit more than Auburn. No, I don't hate Auburn. I just they're one of the teams I worry about. You peak too soon.
I mean, I could see that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there somebody in the SEC that you like better?
A team that hasn't peaked yet and actually kind of looks sloppy as of late, so this is going to sound silly. I kind of like Tennessee.
Okay.
Because they got some of those hard-nosed guys that do well in the tournament, too. Like, Zakai Ziegler strikes me as a guy that just takes off at the NCAA tournament.
Okay. I'm sure there's a lot of cool Rocky Top gear at homefieldapparel.com, which is where you can get all of this. Homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code 3MON24 for 15% off your first order. That's promo code 3MON24 for 15% off your first order, and we're back in just a moment.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number 1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
All right, our top story, always brought to you by Elenco. If you got home improvement needs, Elenco is the place to go. They are definitely K-State fans, can definitely vouch for that. So make sure you go to elencohome.com, ALENCO home.com, if you have any home improvement needs in the area. I'm going to go back to, I'm trying to remember what. Yeah, it was on social. It was a reaction to the social teaser that we put out from the show after the West Virginia game. And it was Cole talking about, some of the signs that have been trending in the right direction here. We mentioned Kellis' stat. That was before the Oklahoma State game, that in the last 2 weeks, K-State have been the number 31 team in the country, according to Bart Torvik. Basically just playing, using that to illustrate, they've been playing like a much more respectable outfit here. Well, now we've tacked on another game. But a fan questioned in the middle of that, guys, we did this after the Cincinnati game. It's just one win. Why don't get too ahead of yourself? Well, we've added now another one, both emphatic performances here, and it is like a progression from playing well but losing close games, now playing well, beating teams that you probably should beat at home. How sustainable is it to you, DY?
I think it's sustainable, and to the, I guess, a little bit of the backlash of this thing turning around. You could turn something around and it not be in wins. So that would be my comeback in that. I know at the end of the day, it's all about winning and losing, and it is. But like you're at a point this year too where you've kind of built up enough losses to where it's not as much that, and you do just look for the signs of progress moving forward so that the next season is not like this one. And I think you're getting every bit of that in the last week, and I can argue 3 weeks, to be quite honest, because I do think it goes back to the Kansas, Baylor, and Texas Tech losses where you saw some of the better signs. You should have beat Texas Tech. You had Baylor down by 12. You hung in there with Kansas when they just flattened you right out of the gate, where a lot of other Kansas State teams, a lot of other teams in this league would have probably wilted. So I do think this is heading the right direction. I do think that it's sustainable. That doesn't mean it will be, but I do think that it is. They're playing their best basketball right now at a time where it was the easiest not to play their best basketball, right? Like it would have been easy. Like, oh, postseason hopes are dashed. Like, why would we turn it around now? Why would we start to play well now? And in the face of all of that adversity and every reason to kind of mail it in, they haven't. They've kind of gone the opposite way. So for me, that's probably the truest sign of all, that you're getting the best product in a time where it would have been the easiest for them to kind of give up and quit and their care factor to be essentially eliminated. And I think Jerome Tang deserves a ton of credit for that.
He absolutely does. And I would also just say, like, eye test, in response to that criticism. It's like if you're watching the games, which, look, I guess I can't blame you too much if you checked out on the season and you weren't watching the games all the way through. But if you've been watching the games all the way through this season, you can notice the difference in what has happened with the team over the last couple of weeks, for sure. And I guess, if you want to say, well, Texas Tech, they were still having Doug McDaniel issues, and they if Doug's playing like he's played the last couple of games against Texas Tech, like they finished that off at the end and they win that. And so it hasn't been perfect, but it's clearly been much better. It's clearly been much better. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And you don't need to, we don't need to reference Bart Torvik. We don't need to reference Ken Baum, anything like that to tell you that. You can go a little bit more old school with it.
And there's still time to get some others right that might not be right yet, because who thought a month ago that Doug McDaniel would be right at this point, or that the team as a whole would be going in the right direction? And we just said they're 3-6. They over half the Big 12 slate left. You can get C.J. Jones a bit more consistent. You can get Ugonna and Yenso a little bit more consistent. So there is time to where you become maybe even more of a more complete product, or have more enticing pieces to bring back that following year, so that the continuity is there. Because I would argue that it took so long for the season to kind of click and push the right buttons, because you kind of get into that situation where it's new for the players, but it's new for the coaches as well. They're getting to know a whole set of new players, and basically you're trading one set of problems for another. Not to call all these guys problems, that's not what I'm doing, but you have to figure out everything that makes them tick as well, and how to get them to play their best basketball, because, a portion of this is all going to be psychological at some point.
Well, are you buying, speaking of other guys stepping up, Moby, his best game of the season, he had 8 points, grabbed 3 rebounds, had 3 steals in 12 minutes, and Jerome Tang after the game said that, quote, "I don't think I've coached a better athlete. He's going to be a special player down the road." They hyped up Taj Manning a couple of years ago, and that hasn't really come to fruition. K-State fans are very familiar with, Chris Kleiman has been a guy that's been very hyperbolic sometimes in describing his players, maybe to a fault. Now, sometimes it comes back around, like calling Will Howard the best backup quarterback in the country. But where are you at on how realistic that is, like that he becomes a legitimate contributor? And I'll even give you, this year, is it something that will pop up the rest of the year, or even just long term with him?
I don't think it'll pop up every game the rest of the year, but I think you'll probably still see those kinds of flashes a few more times throughout the season, because he's going to get those opportunities to do so. And like Jerome Tang said afterwards, the game will probably slow down for him as well. So, he will, just on total grit, toughness, and care factor, and just as want to on the court, he's going to do some nice things. Now, his lack of knowledge and comfortability in terms of what they want to do on both ends of the floor will also make him a liability at times as well, which is why his minutes do come at a limit. Long term, I think he could be a productive piece, a contributor. in terms of like the special athlete, special player, I'm probably not all the way there. I probably need to see more skill development before I want to take that kind of leap and enter him into some, rarefied air. But in terms of someone that could just be productive and a pest and a really good defender and chase down the loose balls, get the rebounds, play tough, have some swagger, I think he can do that.
I liked Cole brought up the comp of Quincy Acey.
Yeah.
Which I was like, man, Quincy Acey I love that guy. Just a pogo stick. And I vividly remember at one point I was doing student radio at that time, and I remember reading Baylor's media notes before I did a K-State Baylor game for student radio, and it was like literally he had like 65% of his field goals for his career were dunks. Like he was just a guy that was there to dunk the ball, use the athleticism. But I'm looking at this. I mean, his numbers actually are better than I would have guessed. I mean, he was like, by the time he was a senior, he was throwing up 12 and 7.
He had a cup of coffee professionally, didn't he?
Per game. He did. And he was Big 12 all defense, 6th man of the year, 1 year in the Big 12. So like he turned into that's probably, if Jerome Tang thinks he's going to be a special player, I think that would fit the bill if he turns into that.
Yeah.
I don't even know that he has to turn into that, but if he can be, diet Quincy Acey, I'd be pretty happy.
No, diet Quincy Acey would be nice as well. Maybe this is controversial, and I don't even know if this is what anyone would like to hear at this point, but I think they're giving Moby Ike-Uruka the role and the minutes and the trust that was at one point reserved for Buddy Rich, is how I would put it, because Buddy Rich was to be that diet Quincy Acey or Quincy Acey role type, I believe, the guy that gets a rebound, plays tough, plays hard, and can finish around the rim. But now Moby Ike-Uruka is doing those things, perhaps even a little bit better than Buddy was at the time, and Buddy's not playing at all. So, and what I would say is, for those just completely miffed, because I actually have seen a portion of fans very frustrated, upset, and miffed about the lack of Buddy Rich playing time. And now I think it's going on 6 games. And aside from by fall, who I think they might be trying to redshirt, he was the only one that didn't get in, even during the garbage times against Houston and most recently the win against Oklahoma State, kind of telling us where that one might be headed. What I would just say is, like, I don't think, for those that just want to assume he's getting a raw deal, I don't know that he is, especially with what you've gotten from Moby Ike-Uruka, and not to like disparage one player, and this is not meant to do that, but if you want to like use some constructive reasoning or deductive reasoning here, the light bulb came on, the flashes started, and this team started to play well when that decision was kind of made.
Yeah, I mean, I know Buddy's kind of like a fan favorite, and he's fun.
Yep.
Offensively, when things are working well, but like I would certainly take him as his offensive skill over Moby, but I would take literally everything else that we've seen from Moby right now, and I think that's more important to the team. So yeah, I'm with you, and it's nothing against Buddy, but I think it's the reality right now with what's happening with the season, which rolls on Saturday in Ames, Iowa, which will be very interesting. We all remember what happened the last time K-State was in Ames. It's the start of a very difficult 4-game stretch that will include, you've got the roadie at Arizona State, which you mentioned will be very important, like in that road losing streak, very gettable. But you got at Iowa State and then Kansas and Arizona at Bramlage surrounding that Arizona State game in this 4-game stretch. That's going to be tricky. Even if you want to extend it to, then you got to go to BYU. I mean, that will not be easy at all. You got a little Utah 2-step with at BYU and at Utah. So difficulty about to ramp up, and in particular on Saturday, man. I mean, last year in Ames, you had the cheat gate, whatever you want to call it. I had a name for it. What were we calling it? What were we calling it last year? It was something gate.
Spygate?
Cygate. Thank you. That's what it was. Cygate. Yeah, I was calling it Cygate last year. That whole thing just completely, as if Iowa State fans didn't hate K-State enough already. that just ramped it up another 3 or 4 notches. I think the hate is much more palpable in basketball than it is in football. You're going into this arena. I don't think anybody thinks it's going to be a very warm reception for Jerome Tang and company there in Hilton. It will be interesting to see what the scene is going to look like. I'll just put it that way, and how everybody handles it, right? Because looking back on it from last year, I think most people would probably say it probably wasn't the best of moves to handle it the way that Jerome Tang did publicly at the end of the game with the handshake and all of that. And it sort of spiraled, and the narrative and the story got completely away from them, and it created a distraction. And now you've, fired up this fan base even more for you. So you're the one that's going to be walking into this den on Saturday, Derek. So I'll let you take it from here on what you're expecting from the atmosphere at Hilton Coliseum.
Yeah, I think some of the atmospheres that I've walked into, at least basketball wise, that I can remember just having the most amount of hate and vitriol and nastiness were, my first few times in Bramlage when KU is there, I think, or almost any year when KU comes to Manhattan. I think that all of those are probably top 10 in terms of that description. And when Kansas State has gone anywhere else, I haven't necessarily felt that level of nastiness or hatred outside of maybe, I want to say, when they went to Allen Fieldhouse, maybe the last 2 years, not this year, but the past 2, I think KU was starting to develop an understanding that K-State might be a team to be reckoned with. And I mean, they had to send some of their students outside of Ramlage Coliseum to watch the game from a different building, I believe, because they had so many that wanted to be in there. So that one comes to it. But everyone always talks about, too, when Chris Beard went back to Texas Tech for the first time, of that being like the hate game. And I'm going to be honest, despite, and this is the funny part, despite Kansas State having a losing record, I think this game might rival that. Because what I will say about Iowa State fans, they are a prideful bunch, and being a top 5 team that has a chance to win a national title this year with a team that they've absolutely adore and love, that they've rallied around and really gotten to know, like, there is the connectivity between team and fan base, similarly to what Kansas State had with Marquise Noel, Keontae Johnson, and them in that team. And then you call them a prideful bunch, perhaps cheaters, and then that never really getting proven or whatever. And I don't know. I think that the level of hate and nastiness because of those things, while they already hated K-State, as you alluded to, kind of puts this game in rarefied air. I think it will be a top 2-3 atmosphere all time in Hilton Coliseum. And I don't know that Iowa State fans would even disagree, despite Kansas State only being 9-11.
Well, I would hope that we don't get the dystopian shot of Texas's bus. It's just trying to pull in, and there's this frothing crowd, just around. It literally looked like they were about to jump the rails and start beating on everybody in there, man. It was crazy. Just wild. I don't think we'll get that, but yeah, I definitely understand the comp. That's sort of the gold standard in terms of crazy, angry atmospheres in college basketball.
Yeah, at least the in-arena, in-Coliseum atmosphere and environment, I think, will rival of what it was in Lubbock that particular day.
Yeah. I that would be my guess. That would certainly be my guess. Iowa State knows they've got a team that is capable of absolutely blasting K-State if they're on, and K-State plays like they have at times this year. Could get very ugly. They're going to be out for blood. And even, I think I was sitting next to you at the artist formerly known as Sprint Center, the Big 12 tournament for that game, when Iowa State had that place pretty damn packed. And we were looking at each other like, dude, they were fired up. Just frothing, man, wanting that one so bad, out for blood, NIT chants, the whole 9 yards. And it was pretty intense there, even just at Sprint Center. So
yeah, that was an intimidating seen even at, like you said, a neutral site environment that wasn't very neutral.
Like 75-25 Iowa State, probably.
Yeah, 75, and that might be generous, and that was at Hilton Coliseum last year, and that place was packed and was pretty nasty that game. And it's like, because they kind of, no one understood the details live at the time, but they realized that Jerome Tang was objecting to something in the middle of the game, and that you got the crying Jim Carrey character that became famous because of that game. So even that atmosphere, and I was there for it, was like, it felt like the walls were coming in on you the way that they were reacting.
Well, does that fire the team up? I mean, I will
not
say
many people around for that. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: at least they have been playing hard lately. Because the thing that would just kill you walking into that is, like, if you're not ready to play hard against that team.
Yeah, Allen Fieldhouse, they jumped out and were down 16-0, 16 to 18-2, something, right?
But then at least, I mean, played hard the rest of the game. Like, if you had the K-State team from,
but that will happen again. Like, you have to go from the tip, or they will, like, because of that environment, like that pace, that craze at the beginning of the game, it's going to be chaotic.
Yeah, it's, it feels like what you say every time you go into Allen Field. I was like, survive the first 5-10 minutes of the game or whatever will definitely be key in Ames too. If you want, I mean, if you're talking about having any chance to win, if you're talking about being competitive, obviously they showed in Lawrence they could still fight back from that. But if you were getting this team that was not, showing like any effort, you get the Houston effort showing up in Hilton. I mean, yeah, you could lose that game by 35. Like, that's on the table. I don't think we'll get that, and so that's why it's been so encouraging that they've been playing so much harder lately. So I do enjoy that we've seen that. And maybe, Coleman Hawkins seems like the type of guy that sort of thrives off of the hate, and he likes mixing it up on social media. And he said coming into this year, like, he wanted to play at Allen Fieldhouse. This is going to be another Allen Fieldhouse-esque atmosphere, if not even better. So I think he's the type of guy that could really relish it. You maybe wonder about the rest of the team, how exactly they'll handle it. So be an interesting prep this week for Jerome Tang, getting ready for that. And, like, let's be honest, how does the coaching staff handle it? Because they did not handle it very well last year.
The hate's going to be directed towards them. Like, yeah. I don't know how you can direct hate towards a staff and not a roster, but
so Coleman Hawkins is going to take some. He'll take some shit.
Yeah, but like Jerome Tang's going to, like, there's going to be moments, and maybe I don't know. Like, we haven't played college athletics at that level. I mean, maybe you get so caught up in it you don't feel it. But
well, the other thing with Coleman Hawkins ended Iowa State's season last year.
Yeah, well,
so
good for him.
And he had some quote. There was a quote from him. What did he say? He said something about it. I'm probably not going to remember it or be it.
He touched on it a little bit after the game. I don't know if that's what you were talking about after the Oklahoma State game. He's like, yeah, something about beating them last year. And
yeah, but I thought he in the offseason, he took a shot at them at one point a little bit. So I think that there will be some vitriol for Coleman Hawkins too.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be vitriol for everyone. There'll be enough to go around.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to come after everyone. Leave Moby alone, all right? What did Moby ever do to you guys in Ames? All right, just chill a little bit. Yeah, we'll see. Saturday, 1:00. That'll be an interesting show to read.
What do you think the spread's going to be? Because that's not out yet. I have 14 or 15.
Yeah, I would have said 12.5, 13, something like that, maybe. Because I don't think they'll get too carried away with it. You got to always worry about backdoor cover sort of thing. K-State was what, like an 8.5 point favorite against Oklahoma State. So they seem to be coming around.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, do you have a final prediction? I mean, we might as well give one, right?
Oh, I mean, I would imagine that they'll lose by 15-20, probably.
I'll say 78-62 Clones.
Yeah, I don't know final score wise, but I would think it's like a 15-20 point game, something like that. You hope that they don't get blitzed at the beginning. I think that's really the thing.
Is there any score, and you got to take in considering the circumstances and the environment, is there any score that would get you off the bandwagon that this thing is still going the way it should. I don't know that I'm going to take anything from this game and say, because you could go in there and get blitzed from the minute and just be completely overwhelmed and like, all right, this isn't going to happen for us. And I wouldn't judge them as well. I might not judge them for a loss of any kind in games on Saturday.
Probably not. I mean, subject to change and, watching it and whatever, but
yeah.
Probably not. I don't think it would be really ultimately very fair to do that. It's a good question, though. It's a good question. Okay. Thanks to our friends at Home Field Apparel, Holiday Distillery, and, of course, Elenco. Go to elencohome.com for all your home improvement needs. Thanks to Nick Springer behind the scenes, keeping us on the air for DY. I'm John Kurtz. We will talk to you very soon. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you soon on 3 Mile.